Shalom. When the staff souls by giving no praise to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahshua, Bashem, Kadash. Double honors to the apostles of great Most and honors you brothers doing the work of the Most in truth and in sincerity. Yahweh's real name of whom the world ignorantly calls God, Jehovah or Yahweh. His real name is Yahweh. The Son's true name is Yahushai, and we pray Yahweh, Bah Hashem, Yahushua, meaning in, meaning that, and Sham meaning names, Yahweh, and the name of Yahushai. Real quick, just kind of wanted to touch on this, and it's one of the things that, yeah, especially if a brother's new in the faith, may struggle with, which is after a point you just kind of have to let your family go. Right now, Scripture says to always be respectful. Right, so grab that up. Right, this is in the law. Right, Exodus 20:12. Right, it says, "Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land, which the Lord Yahweh thy power give thee." Right, so one has to always be respectful to your parents. Now, your parents may be idol worshippers, and that's where it gets to a point where you may have to leave off from your parents, like that was the case with Abraham. I'm trying to remember what his father's name was. Terah, right? Let's see what we can get. Let's see. So it might be around. Let's read into this. Genesis 11:27, right? It says, "Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran begat Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. And Abraham and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, the father of Iscah. But Sarai was barren." It says, "And Terah took Abraham his son, and the lot of Haran's his son, and Sarai his daughter, and they forth went with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan." Right, and they came unto Haran and dwelt. That's not what I'm looking for, but basically there came a point where Abraham left off from his parents, right? Because and then that's just what it is for us in this thing. Right, you start realizing that, especially if you're from certain parts of the world, you start realizing that your folks be straight up into witchcraft. Right, they may call it, "Oh yeah, the pastor told me to do this," and you hear what the pastor's telling them to do, and it's straight up witchcraft, right? And you start just realizing that actually you keep your distance, right? Now it's always for myself always been one of the things that I've kind of after a period of time, right, I started distancing myself from the family, because how it is. You just start requiring too much of you, right? Oh, come to this family event, come to that family event, right? And as we know, those family events are always on always on camp day, right? And it's funny because I think about this sometimes. If camp day is Friday, then all of a sudden all of those family events are on a Friday. If camp day is Sunday, you know what I'm saying. The point being, it's just like, you get to a point where after a while you're just like, look, man. And then you're seeing how they move one with another. You're seeing how they don't that they don't move with respect one to another. There's a lot of backbiting, right, which the scriptures talk about that, right? It says, let's see what some of these other ones say. Let me grab this, right? This is Romans 1, right? Which the whole thing's good, but I'll just jump to the point that I need, right? It says backbiters, right? So look into this word, right? A defamer, evil speaker. Oh man, if right, if they say members of our families, and I feel confident in saying our families, because this is just the nature of the people in this world. It's all about backbiting, all about getting one over another, right? You'll be at work, you're hearing people backbiting each other, right? Now, would you call it, a young brother may, see maybe around some of the elder brethren being like, oh, but that brother was speaking about that other, but be sure that what was spoken about would be said in person. And brothers will say that. It was like, yeah, I'll say this because I'll say it to them in person. And that's one of the things as men that we have to, we have to, to get good at being able to speak one to another on a manly level. Just be like, look, man, this is the situation, right? Because the scriptures command us to do that, right? If that's something, cause that's certainly something that I struggle with, and that's where prayer comes in, right? That the Lord, gives, gives us the ability to speak, right, and one to another and raise concerns in a respectful way, right? Because when we look at, we've all come from different households, and a lot of that, not being, not wanting to offend, not wanting to bring things up, right, is the honest truth is a lot of us came from broken and abusive households, right, where bringing things up, right, the situation would immediately get emotional, and then now arguments and issues are happening, right? And once again, we when we observe our families, we see all of these things, right? And especially, another thing is for us, it just gets to a point where there are certain issues that brothers as amongst our community get used to. It's like sometimes that, but it's not even that deep. You just charge it, keep it moving, right? But then also this thing about just spending time to empathize, right? Because it's a thing, but sometimes people are just going through some shit right now. Going through stuff isn't a excuse to abuse the brotherhood or anything like that, right? We should always do our best to be, to be affectionate and kind one to another, right? But we're still in this flesh, and sometimes, we may not act as we would like. Let me phrase it like that. But in those times, brothers may just have mercy. Like, he's just going through some stuff, man. Right? Hey, you may laugh about it after the fact. Hey, boy, at that time you was being a little bitch. Right? But the point is, our aim is to always resolve things. And we when we're amongst our so-called family in the world, we observe that they ain't got that capacity. Right? They ain't got that empathy. They're always trying to backbite each other. Right? Let me finish this off, right? It says Romans 1:30, backbiters, right? Haters of the Most High, despiteful, proud, boasters, right? Inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents. Now, I don't know, but some, other family structures out there, but hey, this in the so-called African, household, which I know it's not just limited to that, but this whole boasting one upon the other, right? Keeping up with the Joneses. This family member has this, right, or this, but scriptures talk about basically being, well, we have to always be grateful for what it is that we have, right? Because, and you be hearing stories about, you have one family member that has it all, right, but their one of their children doesn't do X, Y, and Z, so then they think that it's the end of the world. And then you see another family member where all of their children are perfect, but maybe they're not as well, and it's just a constant competition without contentment, right? And then this thing of ours, one of the things that we learn, right, is to grow with it, is to stop trying and be more content, right? Because especially in the times that we're coming into when all of this is gonna go anyway, right? But let's grab, this is Matthew 10:36. A man's foes shall be they of his own household, right? And that's it, right? The more it just gets to a point where you start seeing your family as for what it is that they are. Now, as always, that may not always be the case for every brother, and that's where one must be honest with themselves into what the situation is, right? Because but you are gonna have some brothers where actually their family situation is okay. They ain't got stress from their women in the way that other brothers may have stress from their women. They ain't got stress from their moms like in the way other brothers may have stress from their moms, right? They're you just hear different brothers speak about their different family issues, right? And it's just like it's just stress, because at the end of the day, Satan is always gonna try and find ways to get at you. This is This is... let me do it like this. Yeah, Luke 22. Oh, to have you, not sift you. Okay, fair enough. Luke 22:31, right? It says, and the Lord said, Simon, Simon, right, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, right, that he may sift you as wheat, right? And that's it. And also, what do we have? This is 1 Peter 5:8. It says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. And that's what the spiritual demon Satan is all about. It's all about roaming around, trying to see who he can sift. Okay, right, and he's going to use any which way, right, any avenue that he can. All right, so that's why it may be a thing where, you might be, as they say in the world, single, right? You may be single, you ain't got any woman stress when you're single, right? Your stress may just be coming from work, but then Lord may send you a little piece. All of a sudden, right, your work stress starts getting less, but then now you got this woman that's giving you stress. And then when both of those things ain't giving you stress, now your family life is giving you stress. Right? Because that's just the nature of the game, right? We weren't meant to be here for our fun and enjoyment, right? Now, Matthew 10:36, right, it's quoting Micah 7:5-6, right? It says, Micah 7:5, trust ye not in a friend, put ye not confidence in a guide. Keep the doors of thy mouth from her that lieth in thy bosom. For the son dishonoureth the father, and the daughter riseth up against her mother. The daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies are the men of his own house, right? Right, which even that, right? You see that's written in red, right? And basically how I was quoting the Old Testament there. Okay, so let's jump over to Luke 12:51. It says, suppose ye that I am come to give peace on earth? I tell you nay, but rather the division. It says, for from henceforth there shall be 5 in one house divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. The father shall be divided against the son, and the son against the father, the mother against the daughter, and the daughter against the mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Right, so all of these things, right, ultimately they were written. It was, the Lord was very much is very much with division. He's very much having issues in the family and stuff. It was written that way. Okay, so it shouldn't, and as such, and sometimes once again we're in the flesh, we may forget it right in the moment, and that's why the brotherhood is good, right? Because you might be stressed, this family member, that, etc., 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 and then you just get that reminder, just like, yeah, but bro, it was written to be like this, But the Lord, that's what the Lord is on, right? And over a period of time, you just do start distancing yourself from your family, right? Because ultimately they're you start to realize that they are 2 degrees enemies, right? Now, once again, every brother's situation is going to be different in regards to their family, right? So that's where wisdom comes into it, right? But you may have brothers where it's like each time they try do certain things that are righteous according to scriptures, their family gives them hell. Well, it may be one, especially where maybe it's a situation to move out, right? Maybe a situation to to go and do your own thing, right? And best believe, right, after a while, your folks are going to be like, but we don't know why you left, as if they weren't the reasons that made you leave in the first place. Okay. Right, it's Luke 12 and Luke 21:16 now, right? It says, and ye shall be betrayed both by parents and brethren and kinsfolk and friends, and some of you shall they cause to be put to death. And we're very much aware of that, right? What's the saying from the Matrix? Someone who's unplugged, right, can basically become an agent. So someone who isn't unplugged, right, basically still in the system, right, we'll liken that to someone who's not been awoken, right, can basically be used, and turned in that day, right? And that's why ultimately, who do we only really have? The brotherhood. That's why we need to cherish the brotherhood, right? Because when all is said and done, that's all we have. Just us, right? And then let's see what we have here to finish it off, right? Yeah, so it's Luke 12. Look at that, change relationships and the pericope, right? So it says, and while Luke 12:40 from 46 is, while he yet talked to the people, behold, his mother and his brethren stood without, desiring to speak with him. Then one said unto him, behold, thy mother and thy brethren stand without, desiring to speak with thee. Right, but he answered and said unto him that told him, who is my mother and who are my brethren? And he stretched forth his hand towards his disciple and said, behold, my mother and my brethren. Right, for whosoever shall do the will of my Father which is in heaven, the same as my brother and sister and mother. Right, and that's really what it is. You may have, which the Lord has blessed some brothers, myself included, where they've got their blood sibling, right, in this truth, right. But you have certain brothers where actually the brothers in the camp are closer than the so-called brother that they grew up with, that shares the same mother as them, right? And that's just what it is, man. Right? The Lord ultimately, by bringing us all together, He has allowed us to have a new family, if you will, right? A new family where we can speak about everything. Right now, not to say that different brothers have different relations. Some brothers may speak about some things more with one brother than another brother, but the point is still there. Just like we all have, this truth gives us new, relationships and quotes, and we start really appreciating being able to maneuver like men, right? To deal with issues like men, right? And to grow, because that's the thing, man. You start. As the Lord, helps build us up in this thing. One of the things you start really looking at your folks like, y'all are still having these issues. You start looking at them like, oh, this isn't even that big a deal. Why are we still talking about this? Why isn't this resolved? Right? So, that's, you wanted to just touch on that real quick. As always, Lord, I was edifying. Until next time, we say shalom.